So we're in our last stretch of the spiritual preparation for the time of trouble, a balanced look at spiritual lessons and practical ways to prepare for the time of trouble and Jesus' return, and how to trust God through troublous times and the characteristics of those who were faithful. So we already did warnings and surprises, awake, sleeping saints, and settling into the truth. And today we're going to wrap it up with being faithful unto the end. We're going to look at Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and the 8 stages of the Sunday law, and trusting God as a child trusts his parents, and be ready. So as you know, these are dovetailing with chapters in the book. Chapter 14 is faithful unto death. Chapter 11 is the stages of the Sunday law. Chapter 22 is trusting as a child, and 23 is be ready. Okay, this section is being faithful unto death, or being faithful unto death. Daniel 2. Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time, that he might tell the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. That's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's their other names. His companions, that they might seek mercies from God of heaven concerning the secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision, so Daniel blessed the God of heaven. So here we see a death decree, and it was for the wise men, Daniel's inner circle of people, and because they couldn't interpret the dream, he knew they were a fraud. They'd say, well, if you tell us the dream, we can interpret it. And he's saying, well, anybody could do that. You tell me what the dream was, and nobody would. So he says, if you don't tell me, I'm going to kill him. So Daniel goes in and says, hey, give us a little bit of time. Let me work on this. And so he and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego pray, and God gives the answer by allowing Daniel to understand the vision.
Daniel has visionary powers and is forced to work in Nebuchadnezzar's court.
Has no one anything to tell me? Can you not even describe my dream? Silence is no answer. You're supposed to be wise men, sorcerers, seers. So what do you see?
Sire, forgive me. No one here can read your mind.
Then what use are any of you?
My God can. He has shown me your dream.
Then you will be able to tell it to me. Every detail.
You saw a giant statue of a man. Its head made of gold. Then a giant stone struck the statue, smashing it to pieces.
I know that much! What does it mean?
The statue represents the empires that will follow yours. Yours is the greatest, the head of gold.
And the star that destroys the statue.
That is the kingdom of God. In the future, God will reign over all the world, forever.
Destroyed by God.
Yes, sire.
What's your name?
Daniel.
You're a brave man, Daniel. I value that. You will serve me.
So there was a death decree for Nebuchadnezzar's wise men because they could not tell his dream. Daniel and his 3 friends prayed for wisdom and deliverance. God saved them by revealing the dream and its interpretation to Daniel. Daniel 2, the king answered Daniel and said, "Truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and revealer of secrets, since you could reveal this secret." Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts, and he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief administrator over all the wise men. Also Daniel petitioned the king and set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. So Babylon sat at the gate of the king. So Daniel had been shown favor by the king because of this miracle, but he then went to the king and said, "How about my 3 friends? Can we find a place for them in your leadership team?" And he did that. Daniel 3 says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the golden image that you have set up."
In the heart of ancient Babylon, under the reign of the mighty king Nebuchadnezzar, a tale of unwavering faith and divine intervention unfolds. This is the story of 3 young Hebrew men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whose faith was tested in a fiery trial that would become legendary. Babylon was a city of grandeur and idols, and King Nebuchadnezzar, in his pride, erected a colossal golden statue demanding that all his subjects bow down and worship it. The decree was absolute. When the music played, every knee must bend, and any who refused would face a death sentence in the blazing furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, devoted followers of the God of Israel, stood firm in their faith. When the music resounded through the city, they alone remained standing, refusing to bow to the idol. Their defiance quickly reached the ears of Nebuchadnezzar, who, in a furious rage, summoned them before him. "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image I have set up?" the king demanded. He offered them one last chance to comply, but their response was resolute. "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. But even if he does not, we want you to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." The king's fury knew no bounds. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual and commanded his strongest soldiers to bind the 3 men and cast them into the flames. The heat was so intense that the soldiers perished as they executed the king's order. As Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell into the furnace, an incredible scene unfolded. King Nebuchadnezzar, watching from a safe distance, leapt to his feet in astonishment. "Weren't there 3 men that we tied up and threw into the fire? Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." The king approached the furnace and called out, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out." The 3 men emerged from the flames, their bodies untouched by the fire, their clothes unsinged, and not even the smell of smoke upon them. The miraculous 4th figure had vanished. Nebuchadnezzar, overwhelmed by the display of divine power, declared, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants." They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. This profound event not only solidified the faith of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but also led to a decree that no one in the kingdom could speak against their God.
So they were faithful at a penalty of death. They trusted God would rescue them, and even if he didn't, it would be all right. They would still trust God. Now, I'm going to take that Bible story and put it into our day, because we have a death decree coming down the line, and it's going to be connected with the Sunday law. And you might have heard of four stages of the Sunday law, but I'd like to suggest 8. And that we're going to take a look at each one of these. This is, by the way, the handout that you're going to have will list these and a link for a reference. But if you want to see the whole presentation on this is just an abbreviated one because of time. But the full presentation is on the website, and which episode it is on the bottom of the handout. So you could go to the website and watch more detail, more video clips. So there's stage 1 was Constantine. Constantine was the first Sunday law in 610, I think. He established Sunday as the official day of worship.
Constantine accomplished 3 things still in effect today. 1, he standardized the planetary week of 7 days, making Sunday the first day of the week. 2, he exalted Easter and guaranteed the true Passover and the pagan Easter would never fall on the same day. 3, he exalted Sunday as the day of worship for both pagans and Christians. Constantine's son, Constantius, took his father's act one step further and outlawed the use of the biblical calendar for Jews as well. It was no more possible under Constans to apply the old calendar. This also impacted apostolic Christians who still worshipped on the ancient Sabbath. Constantine was a pagan priest with a political agenda. Through a skillful adjustment of the calendar, he united pagans and Christians. The true Sabbath of the Creator was lost.
So-called Sunday blue laws. Well, now this is stage 2. So stage 1 was Constantine. Stage 2, it started in the United States with Sunday blue laws. So-called Sunday blue laws. The very first such was enacted in the colony of Virginia in 1610 and read as followed. Every man and woman shall repair in the morning to the divine service and sermons preached upon the Sabbath day, Sunday of course, and in the afternoon to divine service and catechism, so there's a Catholic term, upon pain of the first fault. So in other words, they had to go to church in the morning and had to go to church in the afternoon. And if they didn't, first offense, they would lose their food, their provision, and their allowance. So they wouldn't get any food and they wouldn't get any money for the first week. The second offense, they would lose that allowance and be whipped. And then the third, they would suffer death. So here's a death decree early on, the very first blue law. If they were a 3-time offender, they would die.
Speaking of alcohol sales, that's probably what you think of when you hear the term blue laws, but they used to involve a whole lot more than just that. Let's connect the dots. First things first, most historians now think the urban legend that blue laws were named after the blue paper that New Haven, Connecticut printed its restrictive laws on is just that, an urban legend. No evidence has been found to support that. The leading theory is the name came from the fact that the word blue was 18th century slang for someone who was prudish. Blue laws came to America with the first colonists, and they restricted almost every activity on Sunday, the Sabbath. They outlawed everything from hunting on Sunday to selling any type of goods to displays of affection. Some colonies prohibited dancing and even laughing too loudly. They also made attending church mandatory. While blue laws became less restrictive in the 20th century, some stuck around. In Pennsylvania, it was illegal to play professional sports on a Sunday into the 1930s. In Texas, it was illegal to sell housewares like pots and pans on a Sunday until 1985. And in several states, it's still illegal for car dealerships to do business on a Sunday. But the most successful and longest standing blue laws in the U.S. are still the ones restricting the sale of alcohol.
Have you ever heard of blue laws? Essentially, they're a throwback to an older time when businesses were not allowed to be open on holidays and Sundays.
But some blue laws are still in effect today.
Director of Collections and Research at the Maine Historical Society, Jamie Rice, says blue laws have religious roots.
They stem from the colonial era, a very Puritan concept of people should be in church or they should be taking a day of observance.
In Maine, many blue laws have been repealed over the years. Until 1981, you couldn't gamble on Sundays. And until 1977, you couldn't bowl on Sundays.
So now we're at stage 3, and this is when the first national Sunday law was attempted to be put into law, and it's known as the Blair Bill.
In May of 1888, Senator Henry Blair of New Hampshire proposed legislation to limit secular activities on Sundays within the jurisdiction of the United States federal government. Senator Blair made it clear that the aim of his bill was to preserve the first day of the week as a day of rest and religious observance. The bill was referred to the Senate Committee on Education and Labor, where Blair was chairman. Among those who raised objections to the proposed legislation was Alonzo T. Jones.
Sir, you may speak of the power of the majority in social and civil matters, but there is no majority, however large, that can invade the territory of a man's religion. Not in this land, not under our Constitution.
Mr. Jones, you fail to recognize the right, or more importantly, the responsibility of the state to protect the welfare of the people as a whole.
Senator, it seems that you fail to recognize the clear distinction between man's responsibility to the state and his duty toward God. The first, he must render under the force of law. The second, duty to God must be carried out only under the force of love, and that freely, voluntarily. No law can command love.
But the law of the state must protect the people to carry out their duty to God. Our Sunday law is written to ensure the preservation of the Lord's Day for the benefit of the people.
All laws that attempt to force the conscience are manifestly unchristian and unconstitutional by their very nature. Therefore, Senator, we are against every Sunday law that has ever been made since the first one enacted by Constantine to the one you are proposing now. And if you changed it from a Sunday law to a Saturday law, we would oppose it just as firmly.
Senator Blair's bill never made it out of committee, but there were already plenty of other Sunday laws, which are commonly called blue laws. In fact, in America today, 49 of the 50 states have laws protecting Sunday. Alaska is the only exception.
So now we're stage 4, and that's now. So the question is, what would it take for everybody to be in favor of there being a Sunday law? Okay, I could see the evangelicals wanting it. I could see the Catholics wanting it. What about atheists? What about agnostics? What about people that are Muslim? What would it take to get all these people to all agree for a Sunday law?
As we consider the rise in technology and the world events taking place around us, there are many possible scenarios. Perhaps a worldwide pandemic, economic crash, terrorist attack, nuclear threats, or even an overall moral decline could trigger a law in our nation that would supposedly bring us back to God. A cashless society, a microchip, or other modern technology could easily be used to identify those who do not comply with the government's decree.
So in stage 4, even conversations are bringing up blue laws. Watch this.
Yeah, we'll make that law.
Sabbath blue laws.
Blue laws.
A blue law.
Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Sabbath laws on Sunday.
And so reaching out to the state.
Maybe the Sabbath laws.
Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Sunday closing laws.
Blue laws, right?
Blue laws meant everything was closed.
The blue laws. Blue laws.
Blue laws.
Sundays accepted.
The blue laws.
Maybe Sunday Sabbath laws?
Or blue laws.
Sabbath rest.
The Sabbath and the sacred blue laws.
Proposed commerce on Sabbath.
For Sabbath laws.
I would say yes and amen. I'll vote for that.
Sabbath laws.
Blue laws.
Sabbath laws.
By attending church on Sunday.
I remember the blue laws.
Sabbath and obscenity laws.
Blue laws and
A national honoring of the Lord's Day.
These laws are known as blue laws.
to remember the blue laws.
They have the blue law.
They were called blue laws.
The idea of blue laws still makes a lot of sense.
The only way to start the return to moral order in this country is by force. It's the only way. It's the only way. It has to be by force, at least for a time. We have to regulate morality by force, at least for a time. It's literally the only solution.
We really need to be really ruthless when it comes to the exercise of power.
Now the vice president. Then other ways we get pressure is from the media.
In a work world, what difference will one day make? The earth won't alter its course. Cats and dogs will be cats and dogs. Rain will still fall from the sky. So take time for Sunday. Just know that your truck has a little thing for Monday.
And then there's pressure that's from religious points of view.
Trying to tell people Jesus gonna come next week, I'm gonna ask you to leave, because I ain't fooling with your Jehovah's Witness, Seventh-day Adventist, law-abiding nonsense. I ain't messing with it. And let me just go one step further for all these Seventh-day Adventists that watch me for some reason and send me letters. You worshiping the devil because you meet on Sunday. Jesus fulfilled the law. Jesus became my Sabbath. And I'm here to tell you, I worship on the first day of the week because of the glory of the resurrection. I am not under the law of the Sabbath. Jesus said there will come a day. It doesn't matter when and it doesn't matter where, but it matters who you will worship. I'm telling you, Saturday worship, as far as the law is concerned, is a demonic doctrine. Shut up and don't come at me with all that nonsense. I got to worship on Saturday because of the law. I'm not under the law, Skippy-O. I'm under the grace of the resurrected Savior. So his kingdom's going to come, and I don't know when, and I don't know how, and I've changed my theological position on all that pre-trib stuff, okay? And I don't care what you think about that neither. I ain't arguing with it. That's why I don't preach a lot on prophecy. Because for years I preached on it like I knew everything about it, got in the Bible and figured out I didn't know nothing about it except what the Baptists told me.
He still doesn't know. And then another way you get pressure is entertainment.
Come on, Lois, I think we're wasting our time here. They're obviously very committed to their beliefs.
But their beliefs are crazy, Brian. I don't know who's crazier, these people or those Seventh-day Adventists.
I'm a Methodist. We believe that the Lord is our Savior, and we remember Him by going to church and praising Him every Sunday.
I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. We believe all the same things that you believe, but we go to church on Saturdays.
What?
And we know from reading the Spirit of Prophecy that labor unions are going to be part of this final showdown.
Holidays were always sacred, and blue laws were there to protect those days.
In other words, protect workers from having to work holidays.
It's the union's position to make sure that our working people get some time off to spend with their families.
Country Living, page 10. The trade unions will be one of the agencies that will bring upon this earth a time of trouble such as not been seen since the world began. Here's the question. How would labor unions have anything to do with this? Says one of the agencies. Huh? Shut down your ports? Yeah. Okay, nothing coming in? Yep. Yes, sir.
Labor unions now have reached an unprecedented amount of power, such as never was before, but it's been quiet and it's been hidden. Our public agencies and our government has all been unionized. And it's going to fall as an overwhelming surprise.
Right. I was a teacher. My first 2 years of teaching, I was at Lake Quinault out on the peninsula. And we would carpool from town, my brother and I, with another lady, and she was the head of the local teachers union. She called it a teachers association. And she was really pressuring us to join. And we told her, you know, we're really not that interested. And anyway, along with this ongoing pressure and hearing her talk and stuff, we got, I think providentially, we got something in the mail telling about a lady back east who the National Teachers Association had. She wouldn't go along with it, and so because she wouldn't be in the union, they blackballed her. I think she might even have lost her career. And it was because of the union beating up on her. So we went before the faculty, you know, the union people local, and said, you know, we would join. We don't have a problem with your local, you know, reasons for existence, but we will not have any of our money from dues going to support this American entity. If you can guarantee us that our money is not going to go to the national organization, then we don't have a problem with joining the local group. Well, they couldn't, because of course the National Education Association had their tentacles in all the local stuff, so it was they couldn't just split it off. So we didn't join. Well, then after those 2 years, I switched schools, and you know it's a closed shop in that, you know, you have to pay the dues whether you're in the union or not. But you don't have to belong to the union. So when I'm filling out my stuff, I check the box that I'm not going to be a union member. So I'm in my classroom and I'm getting things ready. And down the hall, about from here to the drinking fountain away, is this big, loud-voiced guy, coach, who's the head of the union. And he's got a bunch of teachers around him in the hall. And he's talking really loud so I can hear him. And he's saying, that Leisky, he's not a team player, rah, 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 rah. And I'm thinking, you've never even met me. You don't even know what I look like, and you're already hate my guts, you know? So anyway, I can see how this can happen. And when you think about the not being able to buy or sell, if basically every job was unionized and you didn't go along, then you wouldn't be able to buy or sell by them just simply saying, if you don't have the card, you're not going to be able to do transactions. So that's my read on it. Let's see, that was stage, sorry, let's see, we're still in stage 4. There's also political pressure. The Sunday movement is now making its way in darkness. The leaders are concealing the true issue, and many who unite in the movement do not themselves see whether the undercurrent is tending. So that means there are people in the know, deep state, you might say, that are pulling the strings in the government, and they know what's going to happen. They know they're working towards a Sunday law. But there are other people who are supporting it that, in politics, that don't understand. They're innocent of it, but it's still happening. I don't know if it was this morning or I told you yesterday, but I've heard Donald Trump say he doesn't believe in the separation of church and state. The Speaker of the House said the same thing. The very first thing he said when he came into office was, I don't believe in the separation of church and state. Even Ben Carson. I saw him on an interview with, what's his name? Anyway, he was being interviewed. Yeah, he was being interviewed, and he said, well, you know that the separation of church and state isn't in the Constitution. And I'm thinking, haven't you read the Great Controversy? Aren't you an Adventist? And what he said is true, but still, it's like, ugh. So the Sunday movement is now making its way in darkness. The leaders are concealing the true issue. The people that know, and the other ones don't know what's going on. Now, this is a really short clip. Watch it quickly. This is stage 5, where now Sunday observance is required. This is in California. This is a senator in Arizona, I mean.
Probably we should be debating a bill requiring every American to attend a church of their choice on Sunday.
In stage 5 now, it goes worldwide. So Last Day Events says, as America, the land of religious liberty, shall unite with the papacy, enforcing the conscience and compelling men to honor the false Sabbath, the people of every country on the globe will be led to follow her example. The Sabbath question is to be the issue in the great final conflict in which all the world will act a part. Foreign nations will follow the example of the United States. Though she leads out, yet the same crisis will come upon our people in all parts of the world. It brought it home to me when COVID came along, because I was teaching a Sabbath school class at North Cascades Church. We had 45 people in my class, and the COVID death in Kirkland was the first one in the country. Kirkland is just less than an hour away. Our Skagit County health person made an announcement and said, if you are an at-risk person with more than one issue, and they listed the, age and health and all that you need to take precautions. There'd only been one death, and it was just in Kirkland, nationwide. And so I looked at my own life. I'm 72. Okay, that's one category. I've got some health. I'm a diabetic. I got an early stage of a type of leukemia. So I'm in that category. I'm a high risk 3 times, okay? So I told my class at the end of the Sabbath school class, and this, by the way, this was the first Sabbath of our new pastor, who is Ron Helverson Jr., who's been the speaker at camp meeting in the past. Great guy. He'd been the conference president and came to be at our church because her parents were getting in age and they lived in the area. So the place was packed because Ron Helverson's a really in-demand speaker, and the place was just packed full of people, standing room only. And it was that Sabbath that I told my class at the end of the Sabbath school. I said, I'm going to tell you something. This is what the county person said, and I'm high risk. So I'm not going to teach Sabbath school anymore. This is the last time you're going to see me here. And I'm going to teach Sabbath school online. If you want to continue, you're welcome to join me, but I'm not coming to church to be exposed. And I'm looking at my class, and I had 2 doctors in the class. And one of them, I'm reading body language, and he's saying, you're overreacting. Come on, don't be ridiculous. And the other one's going, smart guy, do it, Well, again, that was the first Sabbath that Ron Helverson was there. The next Sabbath, the church was closed and he was talking in front of a camera. That's how fast it happened. It is less than a week. And so then, it didn't take very long and it went global, worldwide. So this thing about starting in America and then the world will, follow suit is pretty easy to believe now that we have seen how that happened with COVID. So in America, the land of religious liberty shall be uniting with the papacy and enforcing the conscience and compelling men to honor the false Sabbath. The people of every country of the globe will be led to follow her example. The Sabbath question is to be the issue in the great final conflict in which all the world will act a part. Foreign nations will follow the example of the United States. Though she leads out, yet the same crisis will come upon all the people in all parts of the world. Now we're going to go to stage 6. Now stage 5 is, we're in 4. But now it's getting future and it's getting thicker. So right now, stage 6 is where the forced labor on Sabbath. Before, it would be, let's not work on Sunday. Okay? But now it switches. Because then Ellen White says, when that happens, when they say, you know, you're supposed to not mow your lawn and all that stuff, and Walmart's closed and everything on Sunday, go and do religious things on Sunday. Go hold Bible studies. Go visit your neighbors. Don't antagonize it unnecessarily. Bringing on the time of trouble early is one way to say it. By going out and blatantly mowing your lawn because you have the right to do it. Don't do it. Don't antagonize it. It's going to come quick enough. So anyway, now we're in the stage 6 where now you have to work on Sabbath. The time will come when men will not only forbid Sunday work, but they will try to force men to labor on Sabbath. And men will be asked to renounce the Sabbath and to subscribe to Sunday observance or forfeit their freedom or their lives. We had a person in our morning session who works at the Naval Shipyard, I believe it was, and he said the union is really strong there, and they work like 14-hour days in a row kind of thing. And he has managed to not have to do those things and work on Sabbath, but he knows the time will come when he won't have a choice. So part of stage 6 is you can't buy or sell. So not only is it now trying to force you to work on Sabbath, but because you don't, you now can't buy or sell. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark in their right hand or their foreheads, that no one may buy or sell except the one who has the mark of, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So during this time, these pastors are going to be afraid of us talking about the Sabbath and asking a tactful question. So they're going to do their best to make sure that conversation doesn't happen with their people. By every means at their command, they will endeavor to suppress the discussion of these vital questions. The church appeals to the strong arm of civil power. So now they're switching strategies. At first, they're going to try to prevent that conversation from happening among their people. But when that doesn't work, they're now going to try to get the government to force it. The church appeals to the strong arm of civil power, and in this work, Papists and Protestants unite. As the movement for Sunday enforcement becomes more bold and decided, the law will be invoked against commandment keepers. They will be threatened with fines and imprisonment, and some will be offered positions of influence and other rewards and advantages as inducements to renounce their faith. So 2 things are going to happen. One is they're going to threaten you. We're going to threaten you with fines. We're going to threaten you by offering to throw you in jail. Then if that doesn't work, they're going to try to bribe you. Oh, well, we'll give you a raise. I picked on the guy that works at the shipyard. Oh, well, if you work Saturday, we'll pay you double time. They actually are doing it right now. They'll pay double if you work Saturday. And Sunday, for that matter. They'll threaten with fines and imprisonment, but then some will be offered in positions of influence. If you'll work on Sabbath, not only will we pay you double, but you're now going to be the supervisor. So that kind of bribery of rewards and inducements. Now stage 7. We were in 6. Stage 7, we see natural disasters being blamed on God's displeasure of Sabbath keepers. And then the great deceiver will persuade men that those who serve God are causing these evils. Remember yesterday we looked at in that 3 stages of the Sunday law, there's a period where the plagues start to get poured out, but the wicked don't realize the righteous aren't getting affected by it. Then after the 3rd plague, then they notice and they say, okay, we're gonna do a death decree. Okay, we're building up to that right now. Then the great deceiver will persuade men that those who serve God are causing these evils. The class that have provoked the displeasure of heaven will charge all of their troubles upon those. Obedience to God's commandments is a perpetual reproof of transgressors. It will be declared that men are offending God, by the violation of the Sunday Sabbath, that this sin has brought calamities which will not cease until Sunday observance shall be strictly enforced, and those who present the claims of the fourth commandment, thus destroying reverence for Sunday, are troublers of the people, preventing their restoration to divine favor and temporal prosperity. So we haven't got to the death decree part yet, but we're getting to where there's increasing natural disasters, and the people will say the reason this is happening is God's not happy with us. So, things can change so fast. It could be a fire, it could be a volcano exploding, it could be anything. But in this stage, in stage 7, these natural disasters, and I had someone in the class this morning telling about how they've noticed all these volcanoes or mountains are falling on these cities. There's one in, she showed us at lunch. Half the mountain came off and buried the whole town in Switzerland. And a bunch of these are happening. One happened in Banff just, this morning or yesterday. Some hikers got, caught in that. And then you've heard probably in the news about here that they're discovering there's this underground lava tube connections between these different mountains from here to California. And there's this extra activity going on. And then you hear about this Pacific Cascadia fault out in the ocean about 100 miles. That they say that the San Andreas fault is not the big one. This is the big one. And that when those two plates shift, it'll make an earthquake out there, which will result in a tidal wave 100 feet tall coming into the coast. And one commentator said that everything west of I-5 will be toast. 100-foot high wall of water. So the point is, these natural disasters and man-made disasters and things, people are going to say the reason this stuff's happening is because we're not getting back to God. So let's get back to God, and then he'll quit punishing us for being bad. That's what this statement says. It'll be declared that men offending God by the violation of the Sunday Sabbath, that this sin has brought calamities which will not cease until Sunday observance shall be strictly enforced. Great Controversy says it'll go worldwide in stage 7 as the Sabbath has become a special point of controversy throughout Christendom, and religious and secular authorities have combined to enforce the observance of Sunday. The persistent refusal of a small minority to yield to popular demand will make them objects of universal extrication. So the whole world's going to hate us. It'll be urged that the few who stand in opposition to the instruction of the church and the law of the state ought not be tolerated, that it's better for them to suffer than the whole nations to be thrown into confusion and lawlessness. For the better good, right? You've heard that phrase? For the common good, I should say.
These miracles will be used as evidence to support the false revival and to pressure the world to observe a counterfeit day of worship. For they are the spirits of demons, performing signs, which go out to the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Demonic spirits will be working at a fever pitch at this time. Satan and his fallen angels even have the ability to appear as someone they are not. And no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. One of the key deceptions that the devil will use in the last days is the teaching of spiritualism, which claims that the human soul continues to exist after death. In his crowning act of deception, a demonic impostor will even appear as Jesus himself.
One time, our little church, I was the head elder, and we were without a pastor. And so we got this phone call from this young lady down the road from the church. And she said, I need to know what to do. They'd been playing around with Ouija boards. And she says, there's a room in our house that's really cold and there's blood oozing out of the wall. And I said, get out of the house. That's what you need to do. And quit playing with the Ouija board. But we're going to see manifestations. And I say, what if you didn't know this? And you're sleeping and you wake up and your dead loved one is standing at the end of your bed. Same look, same voice, same tone. It'd be very, very convincing. There was when we were looking to buy some property to build a house, I found this house that was half built. It was framed and roofed and been there for years. There was a little tree growing out between the two forms for the sidewalk even. It had been there empty, and I researched and found out it had been built by the high school construction class. And so I researched some more. Why did it stop? And on the county records, it says this house is haunted. And I thought, well, I don't believe that. So we could build the house and sell it. And I thought, who's going to buy it? If they believe that it's haunted and it's in the record. So we chose not to do that. But people are just set up for this, and we know that's one of the threefold, three stages of that are going to combine. As the crowning act, Satan will appear as Christ. As the crowning act in the great drama of deception, Satan himself will personate Christ. The church has long professed to look to the Savior's advent as the consummation of her hopes. Now the great deceiver will make it appear that Christ has come. The glory that surrounds him is unsurpassed by anything that mortal eyes have ever beheld. You know, we as Adventists say, well, we're going to know this is fake because Jesus, when he comes down, is not going to touch the earth. And Jesus himself said, if you hear he's over there or he's over there, don't go, right? Those are kind of the telltale signs when Satan impersonates Christ. But he's going to look like nothing you've ever seen, unsurpassed by anything mortal eyes have yet beheld. And it'll be the grand delusion. In his assumed character of Christ, he claims to have changed the Sabbath to Sunday and commands all to hallow the day that he has blessed. He declares that those who persist in keeping holy the seventh day are blaspheming his name by refusing to listen to his angels sent to them with light and truth. This is the strong, almost overmastering delusion. Now notice, backing up, Satan himself will personate Christ. A friend of mine and I have tried to figure out what's the difference between personating and impersonating. And I don't know if I know for sure, but my guess is this is going to be so realistic, it's going to be personated and not impersonated. He's going to look like Christ. He's going to talk like Christ. People are going to be convinced. So that's stage 7. He performs great signs so that even he makes fire come down from heaven to the earth in the sight of men, Revelation says. And Ellen White clarifies, she says, no mere impostors are here foretold. Men are deceived by the miracles which Satan's agents have power to do, not which they pretend to do. Satan is actually going to call fire down from heaven. It's not going to be an illusion. So that these miracles of calling fire down from heaven, in this case, are actual fire from heaven, whether, whatever that means. Great Controversy says, fearful is the issue to which the world is to be brought. The powers of earth, uniting in war against the commandments of God, will decree that all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, shall conform to the customs of the church by the observance of the false Sabbath. All who refuse compliance will be visited with civil penalties, and it will finally be declared that they are deserving of death. Now notice, we're in stage 7 of 8. In stage 7, there's the threat of death. They are deserving of death, but they're not killed. I'm reading between the lines. When we get to 8, this now death decree has teeth. It has a deadline, and it gets really, really serious. So here's 8. I saw that the 4 angels would hold the 4 winds until Jesus' work is done in the sanctuary. What is that? Close of probation. On that time chart, it's the close of probation. So the angels are holding back the winds of strife right now. That's why we don't have stuff like LA riots everywhere, because the angels are preventing it from happening until the close of probation, when Jesus is done in the sanctuary. Then will come the 7 last plagues. These plagues enraged the wicked against the righteous. They thought that we had brought the judgments of God upon them, and if they could rid the earth of us, the plagues would be stayed. A decree went forth to slay the saints, not just to threaten them, but to get rid of them, which caused them to cry day and night for deliverance. This is the time of Jacob's trouble. So remember the chart that I gave you out the first day. There's 3 times of trouble. This is when it switches from 2 to 3. Because after the close of probation, then the plagues start. And after the 3rd plague, they notice that we're not getting affected by the plagues, and they are. So then they say, if we get rid of these guys, the plagues are going to go away. So they make this death decree with a deadline. And so that's when it switches to Jacob's time of trouble. It says right here, this is the time of Jacob's trouble. And that's when we're crying for day and night, and we're running to the hills because they're going to kill us. Okay? And that's when our bread and water will be sure. A decree went forth. A decree will finally be issued against those who hallow the Sabbath of the 4th commandment, denouncing them deserving of the severest punishment and giving the people liberty after a certain time to put them to death. So what we've got here is they've got this deadline, and then they say, well, I'll tell you what, if you mob, you go ahead. You can do it ahead of time. They let them go ahead and do it. So now the mobs are out going after the people. The people of God will then be plunged into the scenes of affliction and distress described by the prophet as the time of Jacob's trouble. So now you're fleeing for your life. You're fleeing to the mountains. When the protection of human laws shall be withdrawn from those who honor the law of God, then will be in different lands a simultaneous movement for their destruction. So now it's worldwide. We're going to get rid of these guys all at once. As the time appointed in the death decree draws near, so there's a certain time in this death decree, like let's say in 2 weeks, the end of the month is when the deadline is. But then they say, but on the other hand, if you mobs want to go after him, you can go ahead of time. So there's an appointed time. As the appointed time in the decree draws near, the people will conspire to root out the hated sect. It will be determined to strike in one night a decisive blow that will utterly silence the voice of dissent and reproof. The people of God, some in prison cells, some hidden in solitary retreats in the forests and the mountains, still plead for divine protection, while in every quarter companies of armed men, urged on by hosts of evil angels, are preparing their work of death. So now you flee to the mountains, and this mob is coming after you because they've been allowed to go ahead of the deadline. And all over, in every quarter, there'll be armed men coming after you. With shouts of triumph and jeering and imprecation, throngs of evil men are about to rush upon their prey. And lo, there's a dense darkness, deeper than the darkness of night, falls upon the earth. Then a rainbow, shining with the glory from the throne of God, spans the heavens and seems to encircle each praying company. The angry multitudes are suddenly arrested. Their mocking cries die away. The object of their murderous rage is forgotten. In some places, before the time of the decree to be executed, the wicked rushed upon the saints to slay them. But the angels, in the form of men of war, fought for them. So here's this mob going after you, and your little company out there hiding in the woods, and they're just ready to kill you, and the angels stand in between you like soldiers, and they can't see you anymore, and they're fighting on your behalf. It's pretty exciting to think about. Satan wished to have the privilege to destroy the saints of the Most High, but Jesus bade his angels watch over them. Why wouldn't God allow anybody to die at this point? Probation is closed. Why does he allow anybody to be a martyr before then? That's right, because it's a witness to other people. They say when those martyrs like Hudson Jerome and all those guys, they'd burn them at the stake and throw their ashes in the creek to try to get rid of any evidence. And Ellen White says it just spread it all over the world, So that's the reason. Thank you for that. Because the reason that there were martyrs is because God allowed it so they could be a witness to save more souls. But once probation closes, there won't be any martyrs. No one's going to die, even though there's a death decree. It is at midnight. That's why I think midnight is the thing. It's at midnight that God manifests his power for the deliverance of his people. I think midnight was the deadline, personally. The sun appears, shining in its strength. Signs and wonders follow in quick succession. The wicked look in terror and amazement upon the scene, while the righteous behold with solemn joy the tokens of their deliverance. Did you know that when the Father announces the day and the hour of Jesus' coming, which is at this moment, that the righteous hear it and the wicked hear thunder? They don't hear him say that, but the righteous hear it. I think that's pretty cool. So, that's the span of the 8 stages of the time of trouble, leading up to the very end, the very most trying Jacob's time of trouble. How do you have the kind of faith to withstand that kind of pressure from the beginning to the end? How do you do that? How do you have a faith that has experiential religion, where you've experienced it, you've proven God, you know it's true, you know He'll take care of you, and your experience is not just intellectual, but spiritual. That's the goal. The 10 virgins we talked about, they all had this, but only half of them had this. You have to have both. And so we're going to talk for a minute about trusting as a child. Jesus told them, "Assuredly, I say to you, unless you are converted and become like little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." Except for Judas, all of the disciples would soon understand the importance of being faithful through persecution and facing death. It's my understanding that all of the disciples died a martyr's death. John was the last one to be alive when he was on Patmos, but even Peter, they tried to kill him by throwing him a boiling cauldron of oil, and he survived. And then when they were going to crucify him, he said, no, hang me upside down. Then we will be able to go to, this is a really cool statement. I love this. Last Day Events, 149. Then we shall be able to go to prison, trusting in Him as a little child trusts his parents. Amazing. I mean, just let that soak in. A little kid is going to run across the road. "Johnny, stop." And if he's obedient, he stops. Why? Because he trusts his parent. Not because he has any idea what the danger is, right? We shall be able to go to prison, trusting in Him as a little child trusts his parents. Now is the time to cultivate faith in God.
And it's really that simple. But it takes humility to come to terms with that sort of a conclusion. Say, "God, I don't know. I don't know what you're up to, but I submit. You know, you've revealed certain things to me, and what you've revealed, I thank you for. But I don't even begin to believe that I have the whole story, because I don't think I could comprehend the whole story. But what I know, and what I know about your character, leads me to believe that I can trust you and I can surrender." The point is, He wants us to trust Him. He wants us to trust in His character. You know? Because when you know someone's character, it puts you at ease about the things you don't know about what they may be doing or not doing in your life. You know, if I know somebody really well and I would trust them with my life, and something happened that kind of seemed a little bit off or a little weird, I would say, well, I don't really know what they're up to, but I know them. I know they're trustworthy, and he or she is a godly person, and so, you know, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Well, think how you can do that with God. You know, do you understand that that's the answer to most of the questions that we have? What's going to happen to such and such? Do you know God? Do you know what He's like? Do you know His character? If you know His character, you're going to come back and say, well, I don't know what He's going to do in that thing, but I do know this. He's good. He's righteous. He's true. He's faithful.
Be ready. Even if we face death for Christ's sake, like the martyrs in the past, God will never leave us or forsake us. We can say, like the 3 Hebrews facing the fiery furnace, God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the fiery furnace and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image you've set up.
See, here's what faith is. Faith is holding on to the promises of God when life falls apart. You know what's the most comforting for me when your prayers don't get answered the way you want is the fact that Jesus didn't get his prayers answered always. That's going to catch some of you off guard, but think about this. When Jesus prayed to the Father in the garden, he said, Daddy, if there's any way for this cup to pass from me and any other way that this can happen, nevertheless, not my will, but your will. And the Bible says he prayed not once, not 2 times, but 3 times. And the Father said, no, there's no other way. Being a Christian does not make you immune from pain and suffering. In fact, I would say you're probably more susceptible to pain and suffering as a Christian. But the promise God gives us is this. We have a constant companion that is walking with us and never leaves us.
The Bible says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. He shall direct thy paths. Now notice what it says. It says, lean not to your own understanding. But listen to what the Bible says in Isaiah 55 now, verses 8 and 9. God says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Now, how far is up? You tell me. You can't. How much higher are God's thoughts than your thoughts? You tell me. You cannot. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my thoughts above your thoughts. Listen to me. Just because it does not make sense to you does not mean it does not make sense. And just because it does not make sense now, that does not mean it will not make sense later on. Not now, but in the coming years, it may be in the better land. We'll understand the meaning of our tears, and there we'll understand. Oh, friend, there's coming a day. There is coming a day when God's going to make everything right. Don't you lose your faith when it doesn't make sense to you. Just because it doesn't make sense to you does not mean it will not make sense one day. Serve Jesus. Give him your heart. Give him your life. And don't ever, ever, ever quit.
To be aware of new videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.